Hello all my Kinvians and welcome to episode 3 of the Weekend Binge on Stranger Things Season 1. And today I'm going to be talking about, in this video I'm going to be talking about Holly Jolly, which is kind of a strange title, admittedly, since it doesn't take place around Christmas, but obviously the youngest sister the youngest child in the Wheeler household, her name is Holly, and so it does kind of tie in there a little bit. But, in the the cold open, or just the opening sequence at least, it is rather quick. I actually apologize for not covering the previous episode's opening sequence, but all the same, we get a rather quick opening sequence, and it's after Barb has been taken, and she is in the Upside Down, as we later come to know it, the Void, the Netherworld, whatever you want to call it. But it's so rough, and just to see her struggling and fighting to get away while this monster is just nipping at her heels, and all the while Nancy is just up in the room getting laid. I mean, I get it, they're teenagers, but it still just really bothers me because she's supposed to be Barb's friend. And it's because of Nancy that, one, Barb was there, two, that Barb got cut because she pressured Barb into trying the beer, or trying to shotgun a beer, and yeah, it's just that whole situation really irks me, and it's just a very visceral feeling when I was watching that opening again. I don't like it. I don't like it a bit. But after the cold opening, we get into the main meat of the episode, and again, I'm going to cover this in overall groups of people. And let's just pick up where we left off with Nancy. And, in the aftermath, not only does she lie to her mom about what was going on, which, that's kind of understandable because that's just kind of what teenagers do for the most part, especially if they're doing something that they're not really supposed to be doing. A lot of them are inclined to lie. Not all of them, but a lot. And when Nancy notices that Barb is missing, it is a more sympathetic moment. So it's at that point that I start to feel a bit of sympathy toward Nancy, because she starts to realize, as the worry builds up in her, that she is responsible for what is going on, for Barb not being around, or at least before it gets confirmed that she actually is missing. You get those little moments of, it's like, oh, is this my fault? Is this my fault? Until it really boils over for her. And just because I'm lumping all of them in, because, Nancy is kind of in league with Steve and Tommy and Carol at this point. I just want to say that Tommy and Carol are the worst. They are, short of Dr. Barrow, or whatever his name is, they are the worst people in this show. They are the worst human beings in this show, save for the actual bad guys. And even at some points, I would say they're probably still worse than some of them. Probably be in league with them if given the choice. I don't know. But yeah, they are the worst. And I don't know why I'm really grouping this in, but it's just because they were involved in the pictures. But Jonathan is caught developing his creeper photos, and oh boy, the fallout from that. The fallout from that. Again, what I said in the previous video, I do not agree with him doing that, like creeping around and taking those pictures when no one knew he was there. Taking the pictures really of Nancy taking her shirt off in the window, it's not okay. That being said, Steve and his lovely troop of friends decide to assault Jonathan. And like, had it been just they tell him off, they rip up the photos, I wouldn't be as angry about that. Because, again, it is an invasion of their privacy, and him taking those pictures was not okay. However, when they decide to straight up assault him by breaking his camera, yeah, no, that's personal property. That is very expensive personal property. You know his family doesn't have a lot of money. At that point, you're just being assholes. Which, again, with Tommy and Carol, that's their territory. With Steve, at least at that point in the show, that's his territory. So yeah, I cannot stand the fact that they did that. I do, again, think that there should be some comeuppance for Jonathan being a creeper, but not actually destroying his camera. That is messed up. And then as far as, well, from those ripped up pictures, Nancy does see that there is a bit of Barb in one of those pictures. So she picks up some of the clippings and takes them with her. And she notices after taping it together that that was taken, at the pool. So Barb was seen, a picture was taken with her sitting on the diving board at the pool. And then Nancy returns to the pool or to Steve's family's house. And while she's there, out in the woods, she hears something and she sees something. She doesn't know what it is. Most people don't even believe it exists at this point. Most of the characters don't believe it exists at this point, should I say. But yeah, it's just that moment where it's still during the day and the creature is running around. I am surprised it didn't necessarily pounce on her, but it was there and she did see it. She saw enough that she knew it didn't have a face, or at least not what most people would consider a face. So that's that group covered. Now to focus on Joyce and Jonathan a bit. It's at this point that Joyce realizes that she can, to a degree, kind of communicate, or at the very least, she believes she can communicate with Will through the lights. And to say the least, Jonathan's a bit concerned when he sees his mom in a room full of lamps, and like if the little spark happens, it's like, she's like, oh, what was that? It's like, understandably, he just says, it's the electricity. It's messing up. Our phone is fried twice. So it's understandable how, he just doesn't believe it at that point, despite the fact that Joyce is in fact correct. But it's after that occurs that she decides to grab the Christmas lights. And when she's initially getting the Christmas lights, even before she goes back to the general store to get a bunch of them, when she's just getting out the Christmas lights, that they do have, that poor dog, that poor dog is just like, what's going on right now? That pupper had a concern. That pupper had big concern, and understandably so. But yeah, just like that's the introduction of the Christmas lights and what ends up leading to so much more, as we'll touch on here in just a few. But it's at that point that Karen, with Holly in tow, decide to visit. And I do like the way they wrote Joyce's explanation for why all the Christmas lights are up. It's like, Will just loved Christmas, and I felt like putting them up would make it feel like he's here, which, even in the explanation, it doesn't make her seem totally, well up there, but it's one that Karen or anyone else could really just be like, okay, she's losing it a bit right now. This is fine. That does definitely change later, but at the time it's just like, okay, this is fine. And then some of the lights start to trail toward, I think it was Jonathan's bedroom. It was either Jonathan's bedroom or Will's. I can't remember exactly. But it trails that way, and Holly decides to follow that light trail. And when she follows it and goes into the room, it's like, she's just, like, she sees all these lights flashing, and then all of a sudden, poof, and then she looks at the wall, and the hand starts coming out. The figure starts forming through the wall, and God, such a chilling moment. And the timing on Joyce actually popping in there and grabbing Holly was perfect. I do admittedly find it a bit crazy that Joyce didn't see like anything coming out of the wall at all, since she had seen it previously. But, she even did say, it's like she noticed that it seemed like, Holly wasn't completely okay, and she's just like, did you see something? Did you see something? Tell me what you saw. And in the meantime, you're just like, she's 3. Like, she can do words okay. I don't think she can really form full sentences at this point, or it doesn't seem like she can. But yeah, it's, from there, after she gets Karen and Holly out, Joyce starts following the lights herself, and she finds where Will is. And she knows that he is there based on, that big bundle of lights that she found and used. Communicating with him through blink once for yes, twice for no. And just through that alone, we find out that, yes, he is alive. But he is not safe. He is very much in danger. So, Joyce is doing whatever she can to try and find a way to be able to properly communicate, not just through yes or no communication. So she gets the admittedly pretty brilliant idea, crazy to the outside looker, or to someone outside looking in, but still pretty brilliant in that she writes the letters on the wall and then attaches or has a light set for each letter. And it really works. And honestly, that's one of the most iconic things I think that really ever came from the show, because I have seen a lot of things really that reference that in particular. And it wasn't until rewatching it that I realized that's a really short-lived thing. Like, they don't really utilize the letters all that much beyond this episode. And it's like, they use the letters to communicate, and then Will spells out R-U-N as the Demogorgon starts coming out to get at Joyce again. And unless I'm forgetting something, I don't think it's utilized again afterward. Which again is just so strange, because it is such an iconic thing that they did with that. So yeah, I guess I'm a little bit disappointed that it wasn't as prevalent, the use of the Christmas lights, as I remember there being. But the way they did utilize it is very well done, in my opinion. Because really after that, it's more just like, the trail, seeing the trail of the lights as it goes along, or at the end of the season where it's just kind of like, oh, something's here. But yeah, moving on from Joyce and Jonathan, let's focus on the kids a bit. And they're going into Operation Mirkwood. And in order to, because they have to go to school, like Mike can't just play hooky this day, so that Eleven knows where to meet them, or where and when to meet them, he gives her his watch. And in preparation for Operation Mirkwood, Lucas brings actual weapons and survival gear, surprisingly enough. The only one that I think ever actually gets utilized in the show being the wrist rocket, aka, slingshot. I can't help but wonder why they referred to it as the wrist rocket instead of a slingshot. Maybe it's sort of a copyright thing. I don't know. But I did find that kind of strange, as it's brought up, throughout the rest of the season. Not frequently, but occasionally. And then Dustin, being Dustin, brings snacks. The most important thing for any hiking operation or trying to find your friend, because you have to keep your energy up. Got to keep those carbs going, because there's going to be a lot of walking and a lot of danger you're going to run into. So you need your energy. Have I mentioned before that I really like Dustin? So, yeah. Anyway, after they go off to school, 11 just explores the house a bit more on her own this time, and gets to watch a little bit of TV, in which we come across some actual commercials from back in the day in the 80s. I still can't believe that Coke is it was once one of their taglines, but that sparking of just seeing the Coke can sparks a flashback for her where she uses her powers to crush the can, which brings us to a later moment. One of her later flashbacks being when they wanted her to kill a cat. And oh my god, it's not only seeing Eleven's face there, it's while she's struggling with the emotions, okay, it's Papa wants me to kill this cat, but I don't want to kill the cat. And she grows increasingly upset until she rips the monitor or whatever it is off of her head. And it's such a tragic moment, and because she failed, Papa, as loving as he is, has her taken by the orderlies to the isolation chamber again. And it's at this moment that we see just the beginnings of how lethal 11 can be. When they throw her in, before they can close the door, it's she just has that look of I'm gonna kill someone on her face. Turns around, one of the orderlies gets slammed into the wall to the point where there's just an oval of cracked tile where he flew into that wall. And then the other orderly comes toward her, and she just, with her brain, breaks his neck. And of course, that makes Papa happy. One would start to think that maybe Papa's not such a good person. Yeah, that's pretty accurate, actually. Oh, but yeah, that's so much craziness surrounding that whole deal. And having to do with the kids again, as I mentioned in the first episode where we're introduced to the bullies. I friggin' hate the bullies just because they do remind you of actual bullies, how they can be, at least from my childhood. I was never really tortured the way that these bullies do, Mike and his friends. But they're still really bad, and I hate them. I hate everything about them. Every time they're on screen, I never once feel an ounce of sympathy toward any of them, or rather either of them. So yeah, the bullies just suck. Moving on from there. So while they're on Operation Mirkwood and they're on their way to try and find Will, it's 11 is zeroing in on where Will is. She brings them to Will's house, and it seems to them she just doesn't know what she's talking about. It's yes, this is his house, but he's not here, he's missing. And she doesn't know how to explain to them that it's no, he's here, he is here, not technically in this dimension, but he is here in the alternate universe. But again, she doesn't know how to communicate that properly, so the boys just feel betrayed, especially Mike. As far as all of them can tell, it's because there's that thing is friends tell the truth. It's friends don't lie to each other, and in their eyes, 11 lied to them. So there is that sense of betrayal. Thankfully, it is one that is not washed over, but it's clarified later. But again, at the time, it is really sad to see, especially since 11 has just gone through so much crap, and I want to give her a hug. I want to tell her everything's gonna be okay. But finally, the last group I want to focus on is really just Hopper. Not even so much as deputies, just Hopper. And the first of which, Hopper does his best to try and inspect the lab. He only gets to do so much, but based off of the clue that they found, which was the torn a bit of clothing in one of the pipes that leads to the lab, like, he does manage to kind of find his way in. He gets to talk to one of the people, not in charge there, but at least a representative. And he asks to see the tape, since, there's cameras all over the campus. And one thing that he definitely noticed was the fact that when they were looking at the cameras, there was no rain. But it was raining at the time where that should have been taking place. So Hopper knows that they lied. And Hopper is just quickly becoming, like, not a conspiracy theorist, but finding his way through the conspiracy theory and beginning his journey to finding out how deep this rabbit hole goes. But beyond that, we are introduced to the fact that Hopper gets around a little bit. He does seem to hook up quite a bit with the ladies, and one of which happens to be the librarian. Yeah, so that just kind of left a very awkward moment, to say the least. Even the deputy, one of the deputies, I don't tend to agree with them for the most part, or I can't really stand their presence for the most part. Even they're just kind of like, the librarian dude? He's just like, womp, womp, womp. But then, of course, it's introduced that, or we're shown that there is a big discovery, that something has been found at the quarry. And that is a body. And what everyone believes to be Will Byers' body. And that's where we're left off with, not only have the boys felt betrayed, not only, especially Mike feels like he's just been betrayed by 11 for lying to them, saying that, he was alive when supposedly his body was just found. But, like, that whole event just opens up a huge can of worms that leads into the upcoming episodes, and it's I just don't really know how to put it into words. This season just keeps getting better and better, and it hooks you, and it makes you feel so many emotions. It hits you right in the feels, and is like, no, 11's telling the truth. She knows what she's saying, and yet all this stuff is going on that points toward the contrary, and you almost start to think, am I going crazy? Is this show trying to trick me? It's not, but you almost start to question all those things. But yeah, I loved this episode just as I have the ones before it, and I'm also ready to talk about the next episode, which I'm going to go ahead and end this here. But if you have any thoughts that you would like to share, whether it's how much you liked this episode, certain things you liked about this episode, did you hate this episode, are there certain things that did annoy you about this episode other than, Steve and his friends and some of the other stuff I mentioned, let me know in the comments down below. I'm looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. And also, at this point in this new series, let me know your thoughts on what you think of this format of the Weekend Binge, because I'm legitimately curious to know what you all have to say. It's something new for me, and I don't know, hopefully you all will like it. But regardless, if you want to skip all the way to the end for the final summation, my overall thoughts on this series, then go ahead and click here and it'll take you to that last episode, or you can click here to go on to the next episode, unless you're already watching this in the playlist, at which point you will be going there when this video ends, which should be about, I don't have a watch, now.